Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack the knowledge that truly matters. Today, we're diving into something that's just exploded, hasn't it? Generative AI.
It really has. It's everywhere, sparking these huge conversations, especially around creativity. It's something we always thought was uniquely human.
Exactly. And, well, that's why we're doing this deep dive. We really want to explore generative AI's role in creative work, how it imagines, how it personalizes, how it produces things.
But also confront those blurry lines.
Yeah.
Right? Where does human originality end and AI begin? What about ownership? Authenticity? Big questions.
Definitely. And just so you know, we've pulled together insights from, well, all over. We've got research on AI creativity itself, plus official reports from the U.S. Copyright Office, trying to give you the full picture.
Right, comprehensive look.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Generative AI, or Gen AI, it's kind of moved past just being a buzzword now. Most of you following this know it's AI that creates original stuff.
Yeah, text, images, video, audio, even code. You give it a prompt, it generates something new. It's not just finding information, it's making it.
But to really get into its impact on creativity, maybe we should quickly touch on how these models are actually built, the basics underneath it all.
Good idea. Because it's not magic, obviously. It relies on these incredibly sophisticated deep learning models.
Okay.
That they basically learn patterns, really complex relationships from just massive amounts of data. And then they use that understanding to generate new content. Our sources generally point to three main phases.
Right. Learns patterns, then creates. Got it. So what are these three phases?
Okay, first is training. This is where you build what's called a foundation model. Imagine training algorithms on just terabytes of raw data, often scraped from the whole internet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. Super compute intensive, takes ages, costs a fortune. We're talking millions of dollars, thousands of GPUs running for weeks.
That's staggering. Just for the basic model?
Exactly. Though we are seeing things like open source models, Meta's Llama 2, for example, which helps developers get around some of that initial cost, which is great.
Okay, so that's the foundation. How do you make it, useful for something specific, like customer service or art?
Right. That leads to phase two, tuning. You take that general foundation model and tailor it. You might fine-tune it with specific labeled data. So for a chatbot, you'd feed it lots of questions and the right answers.
Makes sense.
Or, and this is really interesting, you use reinforcement learning with human feedback, RLHF. Basically, humans rate the AI's outputs, saying this is good, this is bad, and the model learns from that feedback to get better.
So humans are still very much in the loop, even after that huge initial training. Okay, what's the third phase?
It's kind of a continuous cycle. Generation, evaluation, and retuning. You're constantly checking the outputs, tweaking the model, maybe even weekly.
Always refining.
Yeah. And there's also this technique called retrieval augmented generation, RG, that lets the model pull in external up-to-date info. So it's not just stuck with its training data. It can access current knowledge, making it more transparent too.
Okay, that makes sense. Understanding how the training, the tuning brings us to the what. What kinds of models actually, do all this amazing stuff? What are the key architectures?
Well, we've seen quite an evolution. You had early models like variational autoencoders, VAEs, back in 2013, and generative adversarial networks, GANs, around 2014. They were pretty revolutionary then.
GANs, right? Where two networks compete.
Exactly. That adversarial process pushed realism.
Yeah.
Then came diffusion models, also starting around 2014. But they've really hit their stride now. They power tools like DALL-E, creating images by sort of refining noise into something coherent.
That's fascinating, but it feels like transformers are the ones everyone talks about now. They came out in, 2017? How did they become so dominant?
Yeah, transformers are really the core of today's big names. ChatGPT, Midjourney, Copilot. They just excel at natural language processing, NLP, understanding and generating human language.
And NLU, natural language understanding.
Right. NLU goes deeper, getting the intent behind the words. Transformers were a massive leap forward there, allowing for much more coherent long-form generation. That's what led to these large language models we interact with daily.
So transformers were kind of the inflection point, but this tech didn't just pop up in 2017. Give us the quick history lesson. Where did it all start?
Oh, it goes way back. You could trace roots to ELIZA, the first chatbot in 1964, that a big hardware jump in 99, NVIDIA's GeForce GPU. That became the platform for AI development because it sped up the math so much.
Right, that hardware matters.
Hugely. Then fast forward, maybe Google autocomplete in 2004 was an early modern example people saw. But the real explosion, the thing that put Gen AI on everyone's map, was definitely OpenAI releasing ChatGPT in late 2022, built on their earlier GPT work, of course.
And boom, everything changed. Okay, so now let's talk about why. Why is everyone, from artists to CEOs, so captivated by this? What's the big appeal?
Well, it's just incredibly powerful and increasingly accessible. It's fast. It can personalize things instantly. And it offers this potential for, like, infinite remixing and trying things out.
Speed, personalization, remixing. Sounds like a creative dream tool. What kinds of stuff can it actually make? Let's start with text.
For text, especially with transformers, it's amazing. It can write technical docs, instructions,
Yeah.
but also creative stuff, poems, articles. And it's great for those repetitive tasks like drafting summaries, putting up humans for more complex thinking.
Okay, and visuals. We see AI art everywhere now.
Oh, yeah. Images and video. It can create super realistic images or totally original art. It does style transfer, make your photo look like a sketch or a Van Gogh. It can make animations from text prompts, apply special effects, faster and cheaper than traditional methods often.
What about sound and music? I've heard AI songs.
Yep. It can synthesize really natural-sounding speech and generate original music, mimicking professional compositions, handling harmonies, melodies. Google's Magenta project is a cool example here.
Magenta.
Yeah, it's open source research focused on machine learning as a creative tool. They have things like Lyria real-time vs TAPI, which lets musicians actually create with the AI interactively, like jamming with an algorithm.
Jamming with an AI. Wow. Okay, anywhere else it's making big waves.
Definitely. Software code, it helps developers, auto-completing code, translating between languages, even suggesting whole functions. In design and art, beyond just images, think dynamic game environments, character generation, interior design ideas, and even in science, like drug discovery, using it for simulations, generating synthetic data, proposing new molecules. It's really broad.
So beyond just the creation part, what are the wider benefits people are seeing? The sources must talk about this.
Absolutely. Efficiency is huge, obviously. Automating tasks, you're cutting costs. But maybe the deeper benefit is how it can enhance creativity. It can automate brainstorming, help you get over creative blocks. It sort of becomes a partner.
A creative partner.
Yeah. And for businesses, improved decision-making, analyzing huge data sets, finding insights. Dynamic personalization is big too, tailoring content on the fly.
Yeah.
And of course, constant availability. Think customer service chatbots. Always on.
Those benefits are huge. Efficiency, enhanced creativity. But this power, it forces us to ask that bigger question, doesn't it? Can this AI truly create? Or is it just really, really good mimicry?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is it genuinely imagining, or is it just remixing, recombining patterns from its training data, no matter how complexly it does it?
Our sources often frame human creativity as needing, like novelty plus intent. Does Gen AI actually tick both those boxes? Is something missing?
It's tricky. There's this analogy people use. Think of a human chef versus a massive recipe database. The database can spit out endless variations, combine ingredients in new ways based on existing recipes.
Why?
But a real chef has intent, taste, a desire to express something. They might invent something totally new, break the rules, create unexpected flavor pairings. The AI knows the ingredients, the patterns, but does it feel the flavor? Does it have that intent?
That's a great analogy. It really highlights the difference. But even if the output looks novel, if it's generated thousands of unique recipes, is intent the only thing missing? Or is the process itself fundamentally different?
Exactly. It makes you wonder, if creativity often involves breaking rules, can something trained only on existing rules and patterns ever truly, rebel or innovate in that disruptive human way?
It's a real philosophical puzzle, and it leads us straight into the practical mess, the legal side of things, ownership, copyright. These questions are being fought over right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the U.S. Copyright Office is right in the thick of it. They kicked off this big initiative in early 2023 just to tackle AI's impact on copyright law.
They've been busy, right? Listening sessions, webinars.
Tons of public engagement. They got over 10,000 comments by December 2023. People have strong feelings about this.
And what are the core legal questions they're wrestling with?
It boils down to pretty much what we were just discussing. 1, how much of copyright protection, if any, should AI-generated works get? And 2, what about the use of copyrighted stuff in the AI's training data? Is that fair use? Infringement.
And they're actually publishing reports on this, trying to set some ground rules.
Right. They've been rolling out a multi-part report. Part 1 was on digital replicas back in July 2024. Part two, really relevant here, was copyrightability of outputs created using generative AI that came out January 2025.
And what did that one say, essentially, about copywriting AI outputs?
Well, it leans heavily on the need for human authorship. We've already seen cases where the Copyright Office refused registration because there wasn't enough human creative input, like that graphic novel Zarya of the Dawn or the Thaler v. Perlmutter case involving an AI called Davius.
Right. The author has to be human, basically.
That seems to be the direction, yeah. Significant human intervention and creative control appear necessary.
Which then bumps up against things like the Greg Rutkowski problem. Can you explain that?
Sure. Greg Rutkowski is a fantasy artist. His name became a really popular prompt in AI image generators because people wanted art in his style. So the AI churns out thousands of images that look like his work but aren't actually his. Can you copyright a style?
That's a thorny one. And it's happening in music, too, right? Like, who owns an AI-generated Drake song that sounds exactly like Drake?
Exactly. Is it Drake?
Mm-hmm.
The person who prompted the AI company. It forces us to look hard at existing concepts like copyright, fair use, and how this whole idea of massive training data sets fits in, or doesn't fit in.
The law is definitely playing catch-up. So, okay, legal battles aside, how are humans and AI actually working together day-to-day in creative fields? Is it more like a tool or a true collaborator?
That's a great way to frame it. Is AI the brush or the painter or maybe the co-pilot? Increasingly, we're seeing it used as a partner, an enhancer.
A co-pilot. I like that.
Yeah.
Augmenting human creativity, not replacing it.
Precisely. It can handle the repetitive parts, generate options quickly, freeing up the human creator to focus on the bigger picture, the concept, the emotion.
Can you give some concrete examples? How does this co-piloting look in practice?
Sure. Think of a writer using ChatGPT. Maybe not to write the whole thing, but to brainstorm plot points, draft sections quickly, overcome writer's block. The human is still steering, refining, adding the soul.
Okay.
Or artists using Midjourney. They can generate dozens of visual ideas in minutes, explore styles they wouldn't normally try, find starting points for a painting or design. Again, the human curates, directs, finishes.
And that Magenta project you mentioned for music.
Yeah, that's explicitly designed for collaboration. Tools that let musicians interact with the AI in real time, building music together. It's very much about partnership.
That synergy sounds incredibly powerful, but there have to be downsides, right? Challenges, risks. What are the big red flags the sources point out?
Oh, but definitely. A major one, especially in the arts, is the risk of creative monotony. Because AI learns from existing data, it tends to gravitate towards the average, the common patterns.
So everything starts looking or sounding kind of the same.
Potentially, yeah. You might get template music to very generic designs. Algorithmic creativity can be efficient, but maybe a bit safe, lacking that human edge or weirdness. It could lead to a kind of cultural homogenization over time.
That's a worrying thought for diversity in art. What else?
Well, there's the issue of hallucinations, AI outputs that sound totally plausible but are just wrong, made-up facts, nonsensical connections. Like that lawyer example, using an AI that cited fake cases. Exactly. That's a huge problem if you rely on it for accuracy. Developers use guardrails and keep tuning, but it's an ongoing challenge.
And are the results always predictable if I use the same prompt twice?
Not necessarily. Because they're probabilistic, you can get different outputs from the same input.
Yeah.
That can be good for creativity sometimes, but bad if you need consistency. Though getting good at prompt engineering helps control that.
Right, crafting the right prompts. And bias. That's always a concern with data-driven systems.
Absolutely critical. These models learn from vast data sets, and if that data reflects societal biases, which, let's face it, it often does, the AI can learn and perpetuate those biases, generating stereotypical or offensive content.
Actors fight that.
Careful data curation, diverse data sets, clear guidelines during training, and just constant monitoring and evaluation. It's a continuous effort.
And can we even understand why the AI does what it does, the black box problem?
That's still a big hurdle. For many complex models, it's really hard to trace exactly how they arrived at a specific output, even for the creators. That lack of explainability makes trust difficult sometimes.
Yeah, transparency is key. What about more direct threats? Security, privacy, intellectual property.
Big concerns there too. Security and privacy. AI can be weaponized for sophisticated phishing scams, creating fake identities, voice cloning for fraud, and IP risks. Could the data you feed it during tuning or prompting expose your own sensitive information or IP? Plus, you constantly have to watch if the AI's output accidentally infringes on someone else's existing copyright.
And then there are deepfakes, maybe the scariest visual manifestation of this.
Yeah, deepfakes, AI-generated or manipulated images, video, audio designed purely to mislead, used in cyber attacks, financial scams, political disinformation. It really makes you question what you see online.
It does. Are there ways to detect them?
Researchers are working hard on detection methods, but it's an arms race. Really, user education and critical media literacy are just as important right now. We all need to be more skeptical.
Wow. Okay, this has been incredibly illuminating. Powerful potential, but clearly a lot of complex challenges and risks to navigate. Which brings us to some final thoughts looking ahead. Ethical questions, future implications.
Absolutely. One huge ethical question is fair compensation. If an artist's work, their unique style, is used to train an AI, should they get paid? How do we value that contribution? It's fundamental.
And should AI art be labeled as such? There's a big debate about transparency versus artistic freedom there.
There really is.
Yeah.
No easy answers. And ultimately, all this pushes us towards a deeper, maybe more philosophical question.
Gotcha.
What does authentic even mean anymore? In a world potentially flooded with infinite auto-generated content that might be technically perfect, what makes something genuinely authentic?
That's a heavy question to end on, and maybe the perfect one for you, the listener, to chew on. If an AI paints a perfect replica or even a new work in Van Gogh's style, who's the artist, the algorithm, the human prompter, or the data set itself trained on Van Gogh's genius?
A lot to think about.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We hope this journey through generative AI has given you a clearer, maybe more nuanced view of this technology and its profound unfolding impact on creativity.